Ah, good to be back. Let me see if I can get this thing to work right. There we go. Welcome back for another week. We've got great little scalpable price action, but a lot of things are a bit in the overbought territory, and we're kind of waiting for things to come back to earth, so to speak. Um, if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, be sure to do so because we're going to give you guys some killer trades coming soon. We've been killing it all along anyway, but we just keep them coming, and we've got a few that are setting up on the burner that are they're starting to look really nice, and of course some themes to follow going into. I think between now and inauguration day, we're going to see some fluctuations. Things will tend to get chased, and then probably on inauguration day, we're going to have plenty of themes to go and look at for complete sector bounces and stuff that'll just absolutely rotate. But until then, we've got lots of volatility to trade between now and then, especially with some of the political crap going on. So we've got a lot to trade, and we'll just scalp price action until we can start seeing some really good trends and themes start to emerge. What are you looking at for stuff that's kind of setting up nice for some quick scalp action?
I don't know. Let's remember, I'm not a quick scalp guy anymore, but I do love gold and silver miners. I think that sold off hard on the Trump news, and I get it. I mean, because of the dollar, money going out of gold, going into crypto. But I think in a lot of ways, the crypto trade and the gold trade are the same, especially from the standpoint of the Fed being behind the
Right.
curve. So I like both. I like precious metals and I like crypto, but from a chart perspective, I like where the precious metals miners are right now. So, I would be looking to buy into those and I have been.
Yeah, I've looked at following into that. Last time we talked about it, I just sort of randomly popped up SLV back then, and it was a pretty good setup. It was pretty easy to map where the liquidity zone is. It held very nicely. Gave us a nice little bounce out of it with a almost perfect textbook head and shoulders reversal here, inverse head and shoulders reversal. Broke the neckline, and away we went. So I'm definitely liking silver generally,
My,
and then the
my
miners.
favorite silver miners are AG and PAAS. I did buy some AG yesterday. Little pullback today, so I may want to pick up some PAAS. We'll see.
AG looks good. We had a previous measured move that slammed out on that thing back in the days where we were crapping on Kramer, which is easy to do. Yeah, half back looks pretty eminent, like 690 for AG here. And then what was the other one?
PAAS. P as in Paul, A as in Apple, A as in Apple
Been
S.
years since I've traded that one. Holy smokes. Yeah, okay. We're looking at some pretty good chance of follow through in a trend here. Let's see if we got a measured move that's done here, consolidated to half. So we're back at previous reversion trade is about 23.40 for a current target. And then breakout from there, we'll probably hit that fib at about 25 bucks. Cool, we can just mark this one with some quick pivot lines. Easy peasy. And then one other one that I haven't traded in a long time, I'm curious to look at, kind of popped into my mind. I used to actually, in the early days when I started becoming an option seller, I started trading some, and this was at a penny stock level back then, but AUY, are they still around even? Yeah, Yamana Gold. Pretty easy price action. It's a dividend payer, so be aware that sometimes when you sell a covered call, you might miss out on some dividend action. But other than that, it's been a pretty steady range trading stock, and it is still kind of in that penny stock level, but it does take some money to move this thing. It's got a fairly decent sized float. But all in all, price action pretty much respects things. It's a bit on the overbought side right now, pulling back a little bit. I'd say give it to about 570, 75 maybe, and then see if this thing will give us some good setups right around that range, and kind of look for the half back and bounce sort of scenario. So I kind of like this one. Breakout is get to the $6 range, we could see this thing start eating up the previous fib level of the high here up around 615 or so. Not big movements, but okay yield for a penny stock that still trades options. So you can still get into that. Speaking of which, I'm starting to notice subtle improvements in the implied or the open interest on TSLT and NVDX.
Oh, cool.
NVDX, particularly the weeklies, look great. I've been considering selling like 16 strike, 15 strike, somewhere in that neighborhood. There wasn't a lot of volume on them until you go out to like the 29th, but it's doable. And currently, I have a long position on it. Let me go grab my contracts here. Where are they? Yeah, I'm long.
There's some interest. Yeah, there's some nice open interest on Friday. All right. Yeah. Looks like people are trading
It's
them.
working
Nice.
out well. I'm long the 22 strike. Looking at the what expiration? The 22nd expiration there, and I'm just scalping them overnight. I'm up like 35% on them. I'll probably crush them at this next impulse move, but just an overnight swing. And it was pretty easy to see. You know, it was a base measured move set up. There's your primary. It hit the half back and kind of ranged back up to the top. Hit that target this morning, but I think it'll probably push it one more time. Going into earnings tomorrow night, so I mean, Nvidia's got lots of implied volatility on it itself, and then NVDX should show some open interest start to get back into those weekly contracts, and they're picking up to the point where I like the yield on them already. They're picking up to the point where I'm pretty confident in starting to look at selling some puts on this thing. Probably for me, I'll wait till either tomorrow afternoon or possibly for a pullback before I start selling some puts to enter on this thing. But at the same time, it's like under $20. You know, I could easily just grab some equity and sell some covered calls to boot on this thing and take advantage of that implied volatility rush that goes into earnings. So it plays right along in NVDX as well. What's our expected move for Nvidia on earnings? And that's going to be the real quick kicker. Price action has been pretty obvious on this one. It's very easy to find targets, and that 147.60 was pretty easy. That was my own pat myself on the back moment in purple there. Pullbacks, I could see 136 maybe just briefly, but it's already done just yesterday. So today we could see this thing accumulate right in this range, and then on earnings day, either it's going to snap half back if they get bad news, you know, maybe drop to like 122 or so, or it's going to absolutely rip a face off to the bull side and just blow through this target and start heading north of like 165. So
just remember this earnings, you got a couple of things. You've got a rumor kicking around that the Blackwell stuff is causing overheating, and you have their outlook on what impact, if any, and I'm sure there will be, what impact tariffs are going to have.
Yeah.
And, you know, and this will be, I think, I mean, and I may be wrong on this, the first kind of big earnings report where they're going to need to start talking about tariffs in their outlook. So not only is that important for NVIDIA, but that's important for the market. If NVIDIA comes out and says, holy crap, you know, these tariffs, you know, they're going to cut into our earnings, then it's not just NVIDIA that goes down, it's a whole lot of other companies as well. So, you know, I own NVIDIA and I'm going to own NVIDIA. I may buy some SMH puts or do a ratio spread on SMH puts just in case. You know, a little bit of insurance. We'll see. I haven't decided yet.
That might be a good plan to do some ratio spreads, because it's going to give you a range on this earnings no matter what. I'm expecting volatility, and I can say, well, yeah, we can snap back even back to this range here and get into the lower end of like the 109, 107 for a long time was a key put or a key pivot line. Can it be that fast during an earnings call? You betcha. And I have a couple of friends who have been long on this thing for years, and they're you know, long-term investors asking me, what do I do? I'm like, well, I can say if it were my money, I would say take a little profit off to take some risk off. Don't close your whole position if you've been long for a couple of years. It's obviously a stock you want to own. but maybe put a little bit aside for dry powder in case it does dip down and get back to that 107 area again. You can always average up in that and use your free money that you get from taking a little profit off to, compound your position.
One way to play it too, which is how I often like to play things short term that I expect to move a lot, but I'm not 100% sure what direction. And you can use NVDX in this. So you do a call credit spread on NVIDIA and use the proceeds to buy a call on NVDX.
I like that idea.
You need a bigger move to be profitable, but if it goes up, it's going to go up big. And the cool thing is, if it goes down, you break even.
Exactly, because you're not going to put out a lot of risk. I like that idea. That's a good idea. I love being risk averse, and for the most part, I tend to go with those way out of the money debit spreads, and just sometimes I'll make a killing on them. Sometimes I'll lose 100%. But I mean, if I'm paying like 4 cents a contract for $5 wide spreads, I could care. But when I'm closing my SQ position yesterday while I was sitting in a dentist chair at 1,200%, I was not crying. I had a big old grin all of a sudden, and the dentist thought I was happy to see her, but that's a long story. But it was pretty easy. First I took profit off at 400% on about 25% of my position, which covered risk and then some. Took off another 25% at around 950%, which is insane. Most people would dream of making those numbers on options trades. I don't, because I do it pretty regularly when I'm taking such really small out of the money risk way out there. And then, to close 1,200% yesterday, I couldn't have asked for a better day. As for stuff like that, when you start finding the underdogs, when you find stuff that's just got the setup that's just right for a full measured move, you get, a price target that's way out of the money, and you notice that the options chain is really low on premium at that point, or really low delta at that point, but it's got a pretty good shot of follow through to hit that target. That's where I start loading those things up, and throwing something together like that on SQ was just ideal. Now, can SQ go higher? Sure. It broke above my $89 target and then some, and now we're in trend mode. I can take this out, though. I can always roll it out later. So, like, if I'm expecting a full reversion trade out of this thing, and it's just doing the market structure thing, it's getting into that trend area, I would probably see this consolidate here for a little while and then follow through with a trend. It might even go and break out to somewhere close to that 108, 109 pivot, and then pull back. And that pullback is going to be the lifeline to go, hey, let's shoot for a reversion trade. Look for like 142 out of this. So I tend to take things really light and realize that I've already made really good returns on my current trade on this thing. I can compound some of that into a position, and I'm playing with house money. So why not? Looking at the wheel trade on this, the yield isn't ideal for something I'd wheel trade, but I'd be happy to do it with a smaller position. So I could go and sell a couple of $85 puts and just live with it, live with the thrill, or I can go and take a long position, sell puts and covered calls, and just make it into an income strategy. But from here, it's looking like the trend is starting to kind of poke out there. It's starting to get into that mode where it can start running. Be mindful though, look left. There are wicks here, and there is a liquidity range between here and 93 that is likely to give us that accommodation for a consolidation period. So now it's time to mark that out with my old liquidity zone marker, where I take and just mark the range of that on whatever the wicks are. Call that good. If we can melt that zone, sure, we can start heading for these upper range targets. For now, let it consolidate and do its thing. Market structure has a way with that. And if you're nimble and you're smart, you can take some really, really good scalps on the volatility, and then you can enter a long position for negative risk. That's my favorite game to play right there. Negative risk, love it. Even if they go bankrupt overnight, I've still made money that I can't lose. And running into a couple of things on my list, and then I'll get back to a couple of things on your list that you were looking for shorts too. I kind of have this feeling, and this is something I don't trade on emotions, but the one thing I'm watching when it comes to a Trump leadership role, coal. I mean, BTU absolutely killed it.
BTU.
And even after he left office, it was just perfect. It was the best short going in because it became affordable, and it was the best long going out. Where do we go from here?
I'm waiting for this pullback to start to reverse, and then I'm going to be buying BTU. That is on
I
my
like
list.
BTU. It hit the limit on the trap detector, I like to call it, and then came back. It's testing probably angular support in the next couple of days. I think this pullback will finish between 25 and 26 bucks. And then once we hit that number, man, I'm going to start looking for longs too. I really like BTU for a good long play. And I think we might even see that as soon as like the end of this week here. We might see it hit that opportune zone between 25 and 26 to give us an entry on this thing. And yeah, I think what do they say? Brilliant minds think alike. I don't know, man.
Yep. And obviously mediocre minds think alike.
Sometimes I'll call mine the mediocre mind, and yours is the great mind because I mean you got way more AUM than I do.
We actually today we just crossed 4
Holy
billion.
smokes, man! Congrats.
So I'm kind of wondering, do I put out another meme when I just did one a couple days ago, or do I start looking like kind of an asshole?
You know what? If you do put it out, I want it this time. I didn't get the last one. I didn't get to share it, but I'm down.
So see, I don't have a good one. I mean, my guys sent me a couple with doing like the Trump dance, and nothing that nothing that I really love at the moment.
You know what you could do? If you can switch the faces, you know the Batman one where Batman's slapping Robin? I would just put your face as Batman, and then Robin could be like Kramer or somebody.
Maybe.
That'd be pretty awesome. Something like that. I'm pretty creative when it comes to memes, but I haven't made one in, gosh, almost a year. I try to make one every now and then, and I'll come up with something original, but maybe I'll make it. I love doing that stuff. Another one I'm kind of keeping an eye on, and this is one that, I mean, they had a really big hype wave, and eventually it came back to earth, and now we're kind of battling the middle ground. IRBT. Market structure thing. Let's get into that real quick before I go further. So monthly chart, you got the hype wave. This is back when there was news that they were going to partner with Amazon, and it went shooting almost 200 bucks from nowhere. Now it's in that stage where we're in that all-time low range, and we're starting to maybe accumulate into a possible bounce off the floor here. Not quite the best setup, but it's getting to that point where it's had one squeeze. The second attempt to break out failed. It came back, tested the lows, and it's done it the third time is the charm typically. And here it was at resistance, but if you draw an angular across there, it didn't quite meet that yet. This is the zone where I'd be like, okay, well, reversion trade's obvious, about $8, which it did today. And then later on, we could see this thing continue a little higher if it breaks above $8 and say it gets into the upper range here. So keep an eye on this one. It's not the best, most profitable company out there. I'm sure there's others, like even Peloton's looking better than this right now for market structure setups. But this is where I'm going to start watching it for short-term scalps, reversion trades, and that such thing. And then maybe later we get into a trend. So don't take it off your radar for long-term stuff, but for short-term stuff, the volatility's been pretty good on this thing. So I kind of like those reversion trades. They're pretty nice. I'm not going to set a full-on target for it yet, other than about $8 on this current move as a reversion target. But later on, I think we could see this thing start to accumulate in this range and eventually break out of this channel and start rocking and rolling. So keep eyes on it. Range like that is hard to come by in penny stocks. That you can actually find reversion targets that work for. Some other penny stocks you can kill it on, but this one's like, starting to become interesting to me.
I do like this chart. I mean, you've got an undercut and rally here at the 10-day. Looks interesting. I mean, thematically, it doesn't really fit into what I'm looking at, but I do like the chart.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit a theme from what I can see, but market structure is right where it should be, and this is where we start taking interest in something like this. Can it get out of hand? Well, sure. There's a plain measured move here that would hit this target anyway. So like perhaps tentatively I can put, a short term like $10.60 cent target on it. But at this point, I'm at least taking interest, so I'm going to keep it on the radar for sure. Um, where else are we going? Oh, SMCI. Interesting. I know you had a little bit of stuff that you were posting about SMCI, if I remember right.
No, not SMCI. I mean, not for a while.
Someone saying that I know there was some issues with it, and of course it's not quite finished with its market structure thing, but someone was posting about it. Maybe it was someone else I'm thinking of. I hardly keep track of all this crap. I just trade price actions. But fundamentally, this is where we would expect a reversion. We got into our previous measured move block this morning, and we started breaking towards the bullish side on this thing for a short-term trend. Reversion targets up here at about 36 bucks. It's about the half back of that move anyway, roughly. If it gets loose, it could go to 45 bucks. So I think some swing traders are going to start taking interest in this thing. Certainly saw some volatility in here. But can we break out of a bull flag here by the end of the day? Hard to say. Let me throw an angular in it. I would say keep an eye on this range right here. So if it can break out above that 29.25 area on the second impulse of a bull flag, it's pretty rare. A quick measured move right up to that 36 target is not beyond reason. But this is, I think, going to be the line in the sand for this one, just from a technical standing. Can we see this thing, revert market structure? It's not quite ready yet. It hasn't accumulated long enough. We've got pretty much an outlook of like middle first quarter 2025 before this thing really is supposed to follow through with market structure. But I've seen sometimes where we have this big old V bottom after the big old sell off of capitalization in the hype wave, I like to call it, where we can hit a reversion target very suddenly and then continue to slide down. It's still got plenty of room to go to penny stock status, so that's kind of where it's at. But if things get wild, we could see this thing run up to like 62 bucks, which would be about the reversion of that trade very fast. And this thing has the kind of volatility and the kind of market attention from retail traders that can do exactly that. So be nimble if you're going to scalp this thing, and just be sure to check your technical analysis very thoroughly before you start making trade plans on this one. But it was a pretty easy long this morning, I can just say that. From now, wait till it breaks the line in the sand. If it's going to continue higher, it's got to get out of this consolidation zone first. It may not even do it today, so keep it on the radar. You had a couple others. Let me go back into this. You were short ATAT. This one's got a story.
I'm short a bunch of these high flying names that have taken off that preferably you've never heard of, but that have puts. So yeah, ATAT is one. I like the pattern. I mean, this thing took off base for a while and then just got its butt kicked.
It's got a pretty good gap range over here to the left too. So if it breaks below like 2470,
Well, yeah, I mean, thinking it may want to try to fill the gap here.
that'd be a hell of a short down to 2250. I like it.
Another one I'm short that I think we talked about that I actually got stopped out of, but then I got short again, is that KVYO.
Yeah.
So we mentioned that either last week or the week
The week before.
before. Yeah, that was one that didn't work. It jumped right back above the 50-day, so I covered. Then I got short again when it went back below, and so far so good on that.
Nice. That thing's been on the move. For me, it's an obvious short, but it's like the chart is really choppy, so it gets a little volatile. It can tend to stop you out pretty quickly if you jump the gun on this thing. So you got to be pretty thorough on your analysis for this one. But yeah, it can.
Well, I like to buy a basket of these. I do what for me is like a half or a third of a unit, on the put side. And yeah, they're not all gonna work, but when they do, they crater. And when they don't, all right, and again, I divide options into like unit size so that I've got, a standard size. If you lose, you're losing like a half or a third of a unit. And if you win, you've got unlimited upside. And, you put on 10 of these names, 5 of them could
Right.
crater.
I kind of play the same way when it comes to like running, 1 day expiration or even 0 day expiration stuff on like Spy and Q. And it's sometimes you end up with a losing streak of like 10, but if you have one that makes it, a home run, not only does it wipe out any losses you have on the other basket of trades you've made, but it runs you such a high return that you don't even notice the loss on the string of losers. So it kind of makes sense to take some of these high flyers that are just hyped up for no real reason, and then run them with puts, and it only takes one or two of them out of like 5 or 10 of them to really make the difference to where you're eliminating any loss you have in there, since your risk on a put is defined anyway. Um, and if you did your due diligence and you did your technical analysis right, you'll at least hit one or two of them typically very easily. And this is kind of one of them. Yeah, you end up getting stopped out a little bit on a volatile halfback pullback here, but it's still on. I mean, it's right from that point where you would have went short before. So awesome play on this one. Um, Occasionally you get a situation where you can find that uh, the out of the money options that are within the realm of possible targets can be stupid cheap because not many other people are trading them. Those are the ones that can make some really big moves. I know, just a note, like a long time ago, if you remember when PG&E was in court trying to defend that they didn't set most of California on fire with their failing power lines. I know people who made life-changing money going into puts that no one was buying, and I
Yeah.
mean, I'm talking they risked under $1,000 and came out millionaires. No joke. And that's
Nice.
the kind of play where you hit one of those out of 50 and you're set. You don't care about the losses at that point. And that's kind of where it went. It was one of those, well, what if these guys are dragged into court situations? We noticed that the price was at a high, and some of us started talking about it. And it was just like, yeah, it makes sense to maybe take a YOLO in this thing. And at the time, I think some of the puts were trading at like 10 cents that were way the hell out of the money, and they were just closing them at like $30, $40. It was insane. So that's the kind of stuff where you get into a pick like that, especially if it's something like this. It's like no one knows this thing, but it's got options volatility, and it's enough volume in the options to actually make a difference for making trades. These things will kill it. That's a good plan. If nothing else, just short the ones that pop too high. It's like playing whack-a-mole. So we used to do kind of a similar thing every time Kramer would call something out, and it would be at the top. You'd be like, buy, buy, buy. Well, hell no, we short it. Kill it. It's like whack-a-mole. Kind of the same scenario. When it's overhyped and overdriven by a bunch of people, shaking their fists saying buy, 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 well, sell it. Plain and simple. Got time for some reviews on a couple things. Apple is still following through with the accumulation. I was talking about this one last week. I think we're both kind of looking bullish on this one, if I'm not mistaken.
Apple?
It was Sig. I had Sig fill in for you last Thursday. That's right. We were talking about this one. I've got.
But I am, so I'm long-term bullish on
Same.
Apple, but I undercut and rally at the 50-day.
Yes.
If Nvidia didn't have earnings tomorrow, I would have added to my Apple on this move.
I've got some debit spreads that are like stupid cheap, 3 cents a piece, $5 wide, right at my 250 target here. There's just half a measure move up from where it's at. If Nvidia earnings crater tomorrow, I don't have to care. I'm not going to lose much at all. But if they kill it and Apple starts to take the sympathy move and run for those measured moves, I'm going to be pretty happy all the way to the bank, and definitely would pay for some dental work. So, yeah, I got some kind of very, very out of the money, YOLOs that are not too long in expiration, but they're spreads. They don't lose a lot of time decay. So, even if they lose 100%, I'm not going to cry. But if they win, this is another one of those scenarios where you take those little entries at targets that no one else is really looking at. Sometimes you make a home run like no other, and you just laugh and move on to the next thing. put the money in the bank. So yeah, it's going to depend a lot on NVIDIA earnings tomorrow, and I think NVIDIA is going to be make it or break it for a lot of chips. But some of them are setting up to where it can either be a make it or break it move. AMD is a particular one. We nailed this short, absolutely killed it. It was so nice it hit it twice. It came back for the reversion trade, rejected right at that liquidity zone. Yeah, we've been killing AMD. Now we're set up to possibly V-bottom from here and maybe make our way back up to that liquidity zone, and that gives us a pretty ranged move. I mean, we got about a $10 move at least possible in this thing. So following earnings tomorrow on NVIDIA, AMD is one of those plays that could make it. And we've got the classic IHS pattern here kind of happening now. So there's a chance. Would I put a lot of money in it? No. But I think, running like 150, 155 spreads would be worth doing or worth looking at. If by any means NVIDIA does crater and AMD will take a sympathy pullback down to the next lower level, the reversion target probably seeing like January expiration on those 150, 155 debit spreads would be pretty damn cheap, and you get enough time out to January to make up for the rebound trade. So those could possibly be where I'm looking, I think, after NVIDIA earnings. In the meantime, I might put on a small position to look at that level in case there's a YOLO to be had there, and if it's cheap enough. As far as pullback targets, if things got bad for AMD, and you could see, I mean, it pretty much walked beyond our first bear target and hit the second one, which is just the previous measured move base here, or previous support level. I'm going to change this to kind of a liquidity zone. Let's put it onto this wick and give some perspective here. So if this thing makes a sympathy play and NVIDIA craters tomorrow, we could see AMD drop quickly to this level down here about 131, 132. So let's make that our lower liquidity zone range. And if you notice that we're trading in a sideways channel, you got a good eye. And ranges love to keep trading. Kind of reminds me of AMD back when it was trading in range forever. It seemed between $9 and $11. Only now it's a little more. So eventually it will break a range. And I don't see AMD going broke overnight. But I can see some sympathy plays for some quick reversion trades and range trades. So I might start liking AMD a little bit more after the NVIDIA earnings. But then again, when's AMD earnings coming up? They're done. They go into Q4 probably around February, I think. I'll have to look at that later. But overall, I have the ultimate bull target, which is reversion of the entire trend here, upwards in the 180 range. Mine is at 183.90, and that hasn't been met yet since I placed it there. But if things remain bullish after a reversal here, that's the top of the range, guys. That's right where the upper liquidity zone is. Pretty easy shot. So swing traders, long-term investors, everybody's going to be kind of watching chips coming out of earnings here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a fan. I mean, I'm looking, at the AI theme, and I think the market's telling you something with AMD doing this while NVIDIA's doing what it's doing.
Right.
So, to me, I'm going to stick with NVIDIA. I still own Micron, which isn't much better from a chart standpoint than AMD, but it's better.
Agreed.
But yeah, AMD is one I have not gotten involved with.
I like AMD because it's cheap to trade for debit spreads.
Yeah.
There's some really cost-effective options positions to trade and plenty of price range to trade. Worst case scenario, we smoke this liquidity zone. Yeah, it can go as low as like $98 down here. It's pretty obvious. That's the bearish reversion target would be about there. But it's an interesting trade, long or short, and I killed it so much on that short that I think I've got plenty of powder for a quick scalp either side. So I'll probably be better off waiting till after NVIDIA's earnings and take advantage of the swing, either back into range or a break. It might even be an epic short. We'll just have to wait and see. But earnings on NVIDIA is going to be pertinent to where the chips go, I think. And same with QQQ, and I'll get to that in a moment. But A couple other trades to mention. Second, I talked about CCJ last week, and this thing is followed very nice price action. And we're looking at that bounce off the floor here. It's starting to roll back up. It just hit the half measured move mark this morning after it pulled back, but it pretty much nailed that twice and then kept on going. So I'm expecting this to break out and follow through and hit that $61 target pretty readily. Keep an eye on about where the fib level would be on this though. So like if we were to do an extension here, probably be right around 59.80 or so, just kind of eyeballing it. So you might see some profit taking there if it doesn't quite reach that full measured move target up there. That's about where I'd be looking. So be nimble on this move, but so far CCJ looks to be following through. And
So I bought UEC this morning, which looks pretty much the exact same. It's a chart pattern I don't usually do, but I wanted to get some exposure to uranium, and I made an exception. It's something called a pocket pivot, where what you're trying to do is you're trying to get into a breakout before it breaks out. So you're looking at a big up move on volume, which happened yesterday. So, I got in this morning. And again, I prefer the counter trend moves. I don't typically like trend following moves, and I don't like buying breakouts. But pocket pivot pre-breakout, we'll see how that works out.
I like it. I mean, that big ass bull bar.
And I love the theme, so
gives you two targets. I mean, first you've got like 870.
And I'm up $3.50 on my calls. So far so good.
And say you're probably already in and doing well with that. So short term half measure move target about 870, and then long term if it follows through, and we do like the nuclear theme, and we do like uranium. 905 would be the ultimate target there. Let's start looking at that, and then I'm gonna look left real quick before I do. Not the best looking cup and handle, but if we expect accumulation, it would be right at this first 870 target for a quick pullback, probably in a descending channel to about 845, 850. And if it consolidates right there and it continues to eventually break out of that 870, 905 would be the perfect cup and handle target too. So that could be a pretty good play later on. And then if that follows through and nuclear is starting to pick up some steam, no pun intended, especially with the amount of energy AI is set to consume. You're looking at a massive measured move target.
Just remember, on the AI energy theme, you want all of the above. So BTU and coal. Nuclear is the future, but it's a long way away future. Short term, natural gas,
the ones that are here and now.
Coal. Yeah, I mean, all of the above is what's going to be needed on this. And, and now that Trump is in, I think the cleanliness isn't, or lack thereof, is not going to matter.
Agreed. I mean, energy is a necessity. And the other part of, my thesis on it is you can't really have a booming economy without affordable energy. So yes, there's going to be some profit to be taken on the margin for it, of course, with coal and natural gas. But in the long term, we have to figure out, okay, well, where do we see efficiency in this? Because if there's so much demand that supplies tend to lag a little bit, you might see a quick spike in price. So then you can take some very fast volatile trades, and that's where we get in. Even with the nuclear thing, the hype is what's pushing us up. The thought of that kind of demand from AI is what's pushing it up. But at some point there'll be some volatility there. So like we saw with OKLO, it went through the roof, came back, tested support, went back through the roof again, and it's just ping-ponging all over the place. That thing is nice and volatile. It's great trades. We've made some killer scalps on that thing. But in the meantime, the here and now is going to be natural gas. So swing traders will tend to focus on natural gas and coal, whereas day traders will be in the nuclear themes until the hype is done, and then swing traders can take it. Well, we did both. In fact, we did all three. We were, a full 6 weeks ahead of the nuclear craze. we kill it. We
Yeah.
were all over that.
I mean, yeah, in like a month after we were talking about it, my son who works for a big hedge fund is like, Dad, I found the next great theme, AI nuclear. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, we've
okay.
been there, done that. What's next? That's the kind of thing. I mean, it's funny how I've known a few like people who've worked with hedge funds or in hedge funds. I've known some financial advisors over the years. I've known some private equity fund managers over the years, and it never ceases to amaze me how they're a little bit behind the day traders trend when it comes to finding themes like that. And by the time they're into it and they're talking about it, because they also go out and talk to the media about their analyst targets on it, it's already done. It's like the news telling you what happened instead of telling you what's about to happen. Us technical analysts tend to nail those much more quickly and efficiently than my son in the background. Much more quickly and efficiently than most other fundamental analysts, because we're in the here and the now. We see what's boots on the ground. We see what price action is telling us, and then all we got to do is just plan our trades. And effectively, we're ahead of the curve that way. So um, can we thrive together? Yeah, you're looking at a guy who literally thrives on that. He's a technical analyst, used to be a scalper just like me, and now he's a fund manager, and he can do both. This is the dude right here. So we're both kind of ahead of that curve when it comes to being able to be ahead of all the other funds. And it's uncanny because we prove it time and time again, and we hold our accuracy to a high standard and a high level. So yeah, tell your friends we're here to help and actually help. We're not gonna tell you to go buy things with an obnoxious soundboard or something. Not to name names. A couple other things to look at shorting, and Sig and I talked about this on Thursday as well. And I'm glad that your voice came back because we need you. We were looking at shorting airlines, and Delta has kind of hit the point where I might consider a short. It's at, if you measured this as your base, this is where the 1-for-1 would be, not where it currently is. But we're looking at possibility of holiday travel kind of giving them a quick boost. But the key to this structure is if energy suddenly spikes, or if oil prices shoot up, or jet fuel prices shoot up, they're going to feel the crunch really rapidly. So in spite of all the revenue they're going to generate in holiday travel, if margin gets tapped into by expensive fuel, it kind of puts a damper on it. So everybody's buying and chasing these airlines in anticipation of holiday travel with cheap fuel. Great. But if something happens in the Middle East, or OPEC decides to say, "No, we're gonna cut production and bring prices up," yeah, I'm sorry, it takes a hit out of that bubble. So I particularly took a bearish position on American Airlines, kind of right at the limit there. And so far, yesterday I was in some profit. I was able to profit a little bit of it to take some risk off. But now I'm looking at maybe if it breaks out above 1440, I might rethink my process and go short on it later on when it hits 1480. But
So on back to Delta for a minute. I know you don't use the 10-day. I do. I would watch the 10-day. So yesterday it sold off. It broke below
right,
the 10-day and closed back above. Today it looks like it opened. Yeah, it opened below the 10-day and is now above. If you wanted to short airlines, I'd be using that as, break below would be my short trigger, and then somewhere back above would be my stop if I wanted to use a stop.
agreed. And I use the 8 period, but it's kind of the same. And
Yeah, I'm sure it looks the exact same.
it's right in there. I happen to use the 8 instead of the 10. Some people use the 9. But for me, it's kind of the trend breaker. So like whenever I'm looking at the convergence or divergence between the 8 and the 20, for instance, it tends to make sense to me. So like, yeah, when I start to see price action getting weak, I notice that it usually will break that 8 period. And then the final straw is always the 20 period behind. So like here we saw the 8 period break, it tapped off the 20 and resumed a bull trend. So yes, you get a quick scalp short here, but you don't get a swing trade. And until it breaks the 20 period after breaking the 8 period, you just don't get a swing trade. But this bar is looking like tomorrow we could see the 20 period right at the base of that bar around 61.30 if things continue higher. Just kind of guesstimating here. If this ends up being a big old wick and turns red by the middle of the day, which I doubt, but if it does it by Friday, we could have a decent short entry. So looking at the reversal pattern on the 2-hour chart, we got the rounding top. I never short a rounding top unless it breaks key support, and there's 2 range bars to pay attention to. So we got this one here and this one here. So this is our current support resistance level here, and if this is our critical support down here. So if it breaks this, cool, I can go short. About where the 20 period would be. So right in that midst, if this rips over and starts a big old tweezer here and starts to rip that low, yeah, great short for swings. And a similar situation with American Airlines, only it happened a little faster because it's a lower price. Volatility percentage-wise makes more sense to me. So I took the short on, and then close some of it, and I'll reload it later if it rejects here. Same scenario, just a little bit smaller price, so cheaper plays. I love risk adversity, and when I'm trading with frugality, I tend to do well because I could stand a whole bunch more losers than most other options traders, and it just takes one big win to kill it. Other things, we're looking at other transporters too. Didn't quite hit the shippers though, but shippers are not immune to fuel costs, but they do tend to, I like to say, lead the trend for other transporters like airlines and such. So if I'm looking at ZIM, it hit the resistance level more or less. It almost got to that full measured move target and printed a big old wick to reject here. And then yesterday we were looking at this little spinning top here for the daily candle, thinking maybe it might be time to start looking at a pullback on ZIM, maybe even as low as like 1880. But the half back of that current trend is like 2250, so we might get a short opportunity on that. So I think transportation is going to be kind of a theme I'm looking to short soon if things set up right. So it's on my radar. It's just not quite following through just yet. So little scalps here and there, but eventually we'll have some good swings out of it. Just to follow up on a couple of our other babies here. I'll get to Geo in a second too, but have you seen TLN? Are you still long on that one? TLN?
What is it?
Talent Energy?
I think I am out of that currently.
I think about the mid-October level is where we were long on it. And I had my target at like 190.47 or 190.50-ish. And it blew through that and it printed a whole half measured move up to 211. And then kind of backed off here at 217.80. But now we got a really nice big bull bar forming today. So if it breaks that 212.70 pivot, got a pretty good shot of follow through all the way on up here to like 233. So let me just flip this up here.
Yeah. So now on this one, I'm waiting for a counter trend signal because if you look, you've had 2 nice up days, but the volume is soft. So this is not one where, unlike UEC, where I would look at it and say, all right, I'm gonna try to buy into this uptrend. Instead, I'm gonna wait until there's some kind of clear counter trend signal.
Good call. So it's like right up against that resistance level.
Which may end up being totally and completely stupid, but you've got to have a process, and same thing in playing blackjack. If you always hit on the 16, then you hit on the 16. You screw yourself up when you try to second. All right, I'm going to do it this time. I'm not going to do it this time. Right. Like for me, I always hit on a 16. Is that right? Is it wrong? It's neither, but I always do it. So for me, it's not wrong.
I love streaking trends. And this is kind of one of them where it's got that pause candle where it could go either way. So I agree with you on that one. And I think we could see a signal in today or tomorrow. So I mean, if we break out above that 212.70, we got a pretty good shot at follow through. But if it rejects here, well, we can go short and run back to the next pivot. And pullbacks are pretty easy. So yeah, either trend or counter trend signal probably today. So I think by Thursday we'll revisit this one and see where we go. But it is a bit overbought. It's a bit high. We wouldn't take it from here and expect it to go higher. So this is where I'm closing my longs and I'm waiting for the next signal, but it could follow through. So I'll keep it on the radar. Where was, oh, Geo. This thing's a freaking psychopath, man. You called this thing out, and I put my target up here at the previous high fib level at about 1740, and it blasted through that thing so hardcore. Like it lost its mind, and I lost my mind because I couldn't find any exit targets on that beyond that. But then look closer, the 2-hour chart. Everyone thought this was going to be a double top, and they started trying to short it. They covered real quick. We had a squeeze, and then all of a sudden we got new money in it. So it seems to me like this thing might continue trending on up to about, the half move was like $30.22 for this expected part. Can it get above that, beyond that? Man, this thing's it's like in no man's land. I don't know where to go with this thing. I mean, it could go and
Yeah, I mean, the problem for me is if you look during Trump's first term,
right,
the high was 23.17.
right,
Now, you could make an argument that, if they start doing massive deportations, that increases the valuation of the stock. So, I cut my position in half, but I'm still, because of the appreciation, I'm still sitting on, a big chunk, and I'm keeping it. Ooh, now it's even more. I may end up cutting it a little bit more. Getting a little more than I like to have in one position. But yeah, I mean, that would be the question. How much more is it worth over the high it hit during Trump the first time around? And yeah, obviously I don't know the answer to that.
I was reading a question here. Aren't you afraid that gas would go down once Trump gets in? Well, yeah, on inauguration day, for sure it will. I mean, that's probably the first thing he's going to sign. But when we're looking at politics in play, and we're looking at the other possibility here, like with mass deportations, yeah, they stand to make a lot of money and continue way higher. But I mean, where do we put that in for technical analysis? Well, we have to look at the really short-term stuff. We just have to scalp it play by play. So yeah, if you've taken most of your position off right now, and you're just riding on what we call runners, let them run. This thing could go to the moon and back.
Yeah, the problem is when your runners turn into massive
Yeah,
positions, which is a good problem to
true.
have.
Would I average up here? Probably not. But yeah, I think I'll let my runners
No,
go.
I would not be putting new money to
No.
work here.
Although the chart says some new money followed into that short squeeze, so this could be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I just sold a little bit.
But back to the question on
I mean, take your profits, or else someone will take them from you.
Exactly. You got to get yours before they get theirs, and they will get yours and theirs if you're not careful. That quick question on the gas prices. Yes, I would expect them to go down on day one on inauguration day for sure, because I'm pretty sure like minds would think that he's going to go, drill baby drill, unlocked all the stuff that they undid in the Biden administration, and go back to being a net oil producer rather than a net oil consumer in the market space, the global market space. But in the meantime, we've got lots of volatility to whip that stuff around in the short term until then. And then since we had the political crap come in where Biden said, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and use U.S. made long range weapons to attack Russia. That causes some issues. And then we may even see some blowback from the other side of this thing in the UAE, where OPEC says, okay, well, we're going to cut oil production and take advantage of that, because they will.
One thing you may want to look at, and when I talk about the heat formula, E is for edges, and one of the edges I look for is structural. And we've talked about the VIX ETFs a lot, where they're structurally flawed. I think we've talked a little bit about UNG, same deal. USO is the same. Why the VIX ones are my favorite is they're structurally flawed, and VIX needs a reason to stay elevated. Natural gas, we know that tends to go down a lot. USO is not as cut and dried, but I do run, a trend following model where I'm looking to get puts on USO. And if Trump does drill baby drill, that just helps that
Oh yeah,
strategy.
I mean we've seen it before. We'll see it again. And it's the only thing we could maybe say would be an issue is if there was a curveball thrown in there, but I don't see any chance of him getting stonewalled on that either. I think this time there's enough leverage to push that through to where it'll stick, so to speak. I agree with you on that one. And technical analysis wise, it's about hit the reversion target pretty obviously there. I mean, look at this previous trend here. A, B, back to the middle again. Pretty obvious rejection here. We got a nice buying bar coming in here because of the short-term volatility with stuff going on in the political landscape. Maybe we see it hit like 72.30 or so, and then I would almost expect a rejection there, and then just give it on down. Inevitably, you got to realize that every player in the world, generally, whether you're a government entity or a citizen somewhere, everybody's dream is the same. They want peace and tranquility and prosperity. Sometimes prosperity takes precedence, and sabers have to be rattled and fists have to be shaken to kind of make some opportunities arise. But in the meantime, generally everybody wants, prosperity. So let's say that maybe we reject here and we get a nice prosperous short opportunity. It's very possible. So that's the other side of the coin. That's why we're hinging between energy and transporters, because if transporters get socked with a sudden increase in fuel costs, in spite of the extended holiday travel, it's going to cut into the margin. All the price action that's been boosting the airlines has been jumping ahead of that. They've been anticipating this. So this is everybody's opinion of the outlook of what airlines can make on the holiday season this year. But you throw in that sudden increased cost of fuel, and it cuts into that margin pretty heavily. So then people will start to realize, hey, maybe we jumped the gun on this thing. We're a little extended here. Let's come back to a medium. And that's why I'm looking at, just reversion trades. Whenever you see a hype wave for any reason push up, usually they give half back, whether it's an earnings play or a political play or what have you. So when you're talking about the heat strategy, that plays into that. That's kind of where you look for those opportunities on reversions, but that's also kind of where your edges and your hedges can lie. So I tend to think about the same way, just in a different, more technical analysis type of position. I kind of think the same way anyway. So that's why I guess we get along so well.
Good again. Yeah, mediocre minds think alike.
That's it, man. Well, we got time for maybe one more if you got anything hot.
I mean, nothing hot. I mean, and ahead of NVIDIA earnings, I don't know that there's gonna be anything hot. That's one of those binary events. You can talk and blab about it as much as you want. I mean, it's like the election. Who
right.
knows?
Agreed. One last look I was going to follow up on was EQT. I mean, we nailed where that liquidity zone was. It blasted through. Now we're above the half mark here. $44. I think 46.20 is pretty much the limit on this thing. But again, be aware that this is kind of a bit high to be chasing it. So, what did we say about EQT last time we talked? I can't remember.
I mean, it's what we've talked about natural gas. So, it's not. I got to trim this one too. I'm up 242% on my call.
Yeah, I took some profit off a moment ago too. But
yeah, I got to take a little off.
But this thing has been.
Yeah, these things, the utilities, the natural gas, the nuclear, aren't trading like natural resource and utility stocks anymore because you throw the AI in.
Right.
So it changes the game entirely.
It gives us volatility and price action and thus prosperity all in the same breath.
Yep.
And now it's a good time to take some risk off. But if this thing extends, I'd expect a big old topping pattern or a wick on the daily or weekly candles right at that 46.20 if things continue to stay this hot. Look what happened before. I mean, these are obvious. They poke right out the top of that trend and plop right down. So expect things to move fast when they get to this point. And this is a point where I wouldn't chase this higher, but I would love to short it right there. Just saying.
All right, I need to hop.
Same.
I have a 12:30 call on some stuff I need for MSTU. So I will see you on
See you, man.
Thursday.
Thanks again. And thank you all for joining us. We will see you next week. Have a great one.